Okay, well, welcome again. I guess you've heard that many times now. I'm from AcalBfi Nordic, based in Sweden. My colleagues are here, among the exhibitors. We have a tabletop there. You're very welcome to talk to us whenever you can during the day. I've been working with this wireless things, mainly cellular, for quite a few years. I'm not a researcher, so I've been working with it for quite a long time. So I would like to share a little bit of my view when it comes to cellular technology, the commercial things, maybe not commercial in the sense of what does it cost or what's the price of a module, things like that, but a more commercial overview of systems, etc. And now this one. It works so-so. I have a wireless mouse, maybe that's why. So, introduction, a little bit about the company maybe. 2G and 3G are closing down, so I'm going to just show you a few slides about that. I will show a little bit about the status of 4G and 5G on a global scale, how the deployments look today, and a little bit about the planning. Then an overview of the 5G technology, and it's kind of, I don't know what to say, popular scientific, so it's not going to be extreme deep dives, but hopefully I can shed a light on a few things. Obviously, you need some devices, modules, routers, gateways, so I have an assortment of that to show, and then at the end, let's see if you have any questions. So, AcalBfi, we are a European company. We're working with components, solutions. My part and my colleagues' part is mainly in the wireless area, but we do a lot of other things as well. So we work with different kinds of products, like, for example, cellular, 3G, 4G, 5G, but we also have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GNSS products, etc. So it's a variety of products for Internet of Things. And having said that, I mean, most components today are used in Internet of Things. It's kind of getting a bit watered out, but anyway, you know. We try to distinguish ourselves a little bit from other companies. We do have engineers that actually have real equipment in-house, so we're not just the company selling modules or components. We do some developments for customers, or we can do. We're not a design house though, but we can do some developments. We are helping some customers with software developments, some customers with hardware developments, but that's a fairly small part of the business today, but we are growing it. So the topic of today, 3GPP cellular. You've heard about the 2G and 3G sunset and the network closing down, and I'm just going to try to show you a little bit of what's happening really. And so there are a lot of operators that are planning a shutdown of 2G and 3G networks. In Norway, it's already happened. Australia, it happened. US, 2G is gone, 3G is gone. So it's really happening quite fast now. And if you look at it by region, really, you can see also that the area of most interest for us here in the room, Europe, we are at the leading edge of shutdowns if you don't include Australia and US, who are already gone basically. So we are quickly getting out to 2G and 3G, and there are plenty of devices out there working on 2G and 3G, so they will need a replacement very soon. And yeah, this is approximately the rate. In the Nordics, and as far as I have understood, in the rest of Europe as well, 2025 is kind of the date where most of the 2G is planned to be shut down. For the Nordic operators, in particular in Sweden, I went to a webinar a while ago, and they're all operators saying that by 2025, both 2G and 3G would be shut down. The only exception was the operator 3, who said that they would keep 3G for a few select customers, probably a little longer. So 2025 is the year when it probably will not have too many 2G devices working anymore, nor 3G. So, good news, 4G and 5G NR, and as opposed to 2G and 3G, who are quite different in the systems, and 4G is very different from 2G and 3G. 5G is actually a bit of an evolution of 4G at the same time as it's a completely new radio, of course, but they are designed to coexist. For example, they can share the same spectrum, and that's new. That's not possible with the 3G and 2G. That's why you're refarming frequencies. That's one reason for shutting down 2G networks and 3G networks, because you need to free up frequency bands for 4G and 5G. But 4G and 5G can exist in the same spectrum. That's important to remember. As for LTE, you can't really talk about coverage anymore. You should basically talk about where you cannot get 4G. And this is actually an image from November 2018, because in, now I'm trying to use this one, in Cuba, they actually got 4G in December 2018. That's interesting. So currently, areas where you don't have 4G is North Korea and a few countries in Africa. It's pretty interesting. So it's good coverage with 4G. I would guess that coverage down here is not that good either. For people who like numbers, 4G is expected to peak 2022-2023 at 7 billion subscribers. So you will have almost 1,000 operators in almost 250 countries around the world running 4G networks, and that's pretty massive, actually. So it's not going to go away anytime soon, that's for sure. And looking at 5G, it's expected, by the way, the data comes from an organization called the GSA, which is kind of a joint venture, or the club for network operators, let's say. They are releasing quite a lot of reports, and they believe that we will have 1 billion subscribers of 5G during this year, and more than 200 operators active and investing 500 operators, and a lot of them in Europe. People that were first with 5G, by the way, was South Korea and US, but I guess you already know that. Another part in the 4G and 5G is the LTE-M and NB-IoT, the low power networks, and they are also getting deployed, maybe not as rapid as everyone thought, but in Europe there is very good coverage. I believe, I mentioned in the previous slide that there were almost 1,000 operators in the world having mobile network, but that's a lot of different technologies, and maybe all network operators in a specific country don't deploy an LTE Cat-M or an NBA IoT network. An example is Sweden, where there are basically two that does, and a couple of operators, like Tele2 for example, decided not to deploy NB or LTE, at least not yet. So it is growing. And yeah, I don't know if you've seen this, but the organization that drives the standardization of cellular technology is called 3GPP. And they have this massive amount of people, there's thousands of people actually sitting in work groups and making these standards. So we are here. Now, today we have available networks and product modules, radio modules and phones, of course, that support release 16. Release 17 is frozen this year, well, basically just around now. And the one important thing for Internet of Things in release 17 is what's called RedCap. I'll come back to that later on. And beyond here somewhere, you have the 6G thing. Here's a little bit show what 5G is. It started with release 15, then release 16, where we are now, and then release 17, 18, and so on. So you can see basically you extend mobile technology to virtually any device or any area of the society. So communication is everything. At least if you listen to people like Qualcomm, Ericsson, and such. So why 5G then? Well, of course, efficiency, higher speed, more throughput, and lower latency, and also more devices being possible to use in the same area. And in 5G, with the low power technologies, you talk about more than 1 million devices per square kilometer, and that's quite a lot. But if you connect every sensor, every building in a city, you will get a lot of devices, obviously. So maybe it will happen that you get that many devices. I don't know. Also in 5G, the frequency bands have expanded. Previous technologies like 2G, 3G, they topped up around 2 gigahertz. Now we have the low bands and mid bands of 5G are below 6 gigahertz, or actually below 7. There are some new frequency bands coming in. And then you have a millimeter wave, which is another story. But so basically you're extending the frequency range a lot. You have a lot more bandwidth. You can basically transport more data, so you get gigabit downlink speeds. Maybe you know about it, maybe not. There are two flavors, let's say. One is called standalone, and one is called non-standalone. In the standalone case, you have 5G radio networks. You connect directly to the 5G core network, which means that latency is minimized. Sorry, I should move this microphone. Need long arms. Normally, when you start a deployment, you deploy 5G together with 4G, which is known as non-standalone, and that means that you will need 4G anchor band to be able to connect to the 5G radio. And this, of course, increases latency a bit. So you will get the latency, which is similar, a little bit better than 4G, so you will go down to maybe 20, 30 milliseconds or something like that. In an SA network, you will be able to get maybe 10, 20 milliseconds. one little advantage of an NSA network is that you can actually combine downlink speeds of 5G and 4G to get even more downlink data and also uplink data. So you can reach in release 16 with the modules available, that is a bit over 4 gigabit per second downlink and up to almost 1 gigabit in uplink speed, which is pretty impressive. Also with 5G, it will become an even more distributed functionality, as it says. So you will have the central, like you have today with 4G, most of the time you have a central system which you need to communicate with, which means that latency has a limit. You can't get below a certain level. In 5G, you will have much more deployed in the mobile edge. So you move the intelligence out to the mobile base station, basically. So the radio mast will have a computer that communicates direct with your device. And in some cases, you also have some intelligence in the device which will kind of simulate the system so that you get extremely short latencies. Another thing with 5G, private networks are something that are expected to be very popular in larger factory sites. It could be harbors, etc. Because then you can really be sure that you have your own system. It's secure in the sense that your data will not leave the premise. You can control quality of service. You can, to a certain extent, control the latency. So you can get very fast reactions with, if you look at machines, for example, transferring data between machines in production process on a millisecond basis. So that's very important, and it's expected to grow. And normally, the modules we deliver today will cover also the private bands. So some of the applications, well, mines and oil refineries may not be that politically correct today, but still, sorry. And 5G RedCap, or NR. NR, by the way, stands for New Radio, unless you didn't know that. Reduced capacity 5G. 5G has some challenges with the current devices that are on the market for industrial use. You will need 4 antennas, for example, which is pretty difficult if you want to make a small device. You will need a quite powerful power supply. You will need to cool the device because it produces quite a bit of heat if you use it, at least if you run a lot of data through it. So therefore, 5G RedCap was introduced to become something which is between the mobile broadband and this low power wide area networks, where you need maybe a capacity of an LTE Cat4, so data rates of 50 to 100 megabit per second, and you want to have better performance. So that's what the RedCap will do, and it is in release 17. One good thing is you will only need 1 antenna. It may not sound as a huge difference, but designing something with 4 antennas for the frequency bands that you have compared to designing with 1 antenna is a pretty difficult story. It takes a lot of space and you need a lot of competence. Also, the certification schemes are not that easy to go through. And by the way, they're quite expensive as well. We have customers that have actually designed a type of router with a couple of modules, and certification cost for Europe and North America was around a million Swedish crowns, so 100,000 euros. So it can be quite expensive, so you need to consider what you do when you deploy that. Commercial availability of RedCap devices, I would guess 2024. Release 17 is frozen around now. Normally it takes around a year before there is a chipset available, and then it takes another year to have modules. So I would guess it will be something like that. And again, going back to operators, most operators in the world are upgrading to 4G and 5G. Some are going 4G only, but probably they will go to 5G later on. Some seem to go to 5G only, and I haven't really investigated, but I would assume that those 13%, the lion's share would be people like fixed wireless access. So instead of a fiber to home, you have a 5G router. So that could be one of the use cases that makes the specific operator go for only 5G. But I'm sure there are other cases as well, but that would be one, I guess. As for devices, so today 4G is the predominant technology, also the technology that's most cost efficient. There are plenty of products available on the market to cover various flavors. The surface mount devices in general go from the low power technologies up to Cat4. There are Cat6 devices as well, and there are some that are even higher speed, but normally when you go to higher speed than 100 megabit per second or so, or 150, you would tend to go to another form factor, which is normally the Mini PCIe Express, or rather today you would go to M.2 for modern design, because that's a form factor that will have the future in terms of more suppliers and more products available. And the reason for that obviously is the thin laptops, the pads, etc., which uses the M.2 type of modules. And you can get them from basically from Cat4 or Cat1 actually, up to Cat12, 13, where you have a 600 megabit downlink and a global module. So you can buy one module and have it working all over the world. 5G modules in general will go to this form factor. And today, what I can say at least is that we have available are these types. So the Sierra Wireless EM91 series are available, produced today. EM92 will become available early next year. Fibcom modules, FM160s are available now. There will be a new module, which is a global device, release 16, available towards the end of the year. And if you want a surface mount device, that will also be available, or it is available today if you need. 5G RedCap, so I at least haven't seen any announcement of the silicon becoming available, but probably Qualcomm has something in the drawer. I would guess they have. There are no modules announced so far. I know people are looking for it, but nothing so far. So I'm guessing 2024 commercial availability roundabout. Maybe samples and next year, but let's see. And obviously, there are ready-made routers. You don't need to build your 5G device yourself. You can buy the complete router, which has all the good flavors in routing. Basically, you manage them as your home router, but they are more rugged, more secure, etc. And even further down the road, well, we're going towards 6G. Interesting. So that's beyond 2026, 27, something like that, where you go into this strange new world. There's a company that renamed themselves to me, that you call it the metaverse. I don't know what it is really, so it kind of, it got me thinking of the hula. And for those who don't know, the hula is a super intelligent shade of the color blue. And maybe that's where we're going. So maybe Douglas Adams was right. And yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.